folks, back again. This is your host of Lit Literature, JP, aka The Demon, and we are here to discuss Mistborn Book 2, Woo! The Well of Ascension. And I think it is the Well, not Well of Ascension. Or it might be Well of Ascension. Now I don't know. Our book's in front of the laptop. So, but anyway, that's by Brandon Sanderson. And
the Well of Ascension.
Yes. And so it is still the four of us, and it's funny because after we go around and do roundtables, we have to acknowledge that we do have a Brett bet at how many people will eventually join us for this book. Which right now it's looking like I'm performing pretty poorly. However, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
Hopefully I wrote those down.
Yeah, we have them on record, video record if we need to.
Oh, they might be manipulated though.
Oh, snap. We don't know.
Are there any forms of video transcribed in metal?
I don't know.
Yeah, anything on a hard drive, technically. Although, I guess it's not like etched in metal.
That is true. But that, no, because it's etched in the lines, ones and zeros. Right?
Yes.
Well, we don't know that, though, if it works anything like metal mines. Those are in metal, but they're stored in metal, not etched
I think it would be like that.
That's so weird. Yeah. Why? Okay, we'll talk about it.
Let's do our introductions first.
We got the cherry. How's it going?
Brett, the director.
The Hitman.
All right.
That was quick.
Cheers. And, cheers. Yeah, cheers, everybody. Nice to see you all again. So, well, we kind of have a lot to talk about, so I'm glad we're getting an early start.
Oh, yeah.
I guess first, let's just do a quick gut note, like kind of spoiler-free. How did you feel? How was it? What were your thoughts? And then we'll kind of move on into all of the many things that we probably need to discuss.
I mean, I loved it. Book was fantastic. I'm really liking this series. I love the metal magic and all the stuff that we said about book one. This book was crazy, and I don't know. There's not a ton I can say about it without delving into spoilers. But it's just it's typical Sanderson stuff. Like just so good. Yeah. I love stories that work in gray areas and non-absolutes and exploring difficult topics, and this delivers.
Cool.
Yeah, this one for me, I think overall, I felt it almost took a bit of a break on a lot of the badass like fight scenes. Granted, there are some good ones, and there's specifically one chunk of book that has some awesome stuff in it. But I think it took a step back a little bit from that to really delve into almost more of like this, not quite like drama, but this like very thriller-esque type like book where you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on and there's all this like stuff building up, and there are like these little threads that you're trying to keep your mind on that all are kind of like alluding to something, but you don't quite know what, so you're going through it kind of like trying to figure out what's happening. So I thought that was an awesome like really change from the first book, which is very action-packed, kind of gets you in there, and like introducing a lot of new stuff to this where it's like really even developing so much more and leaving you like little hints to stuff, and you start to figure things out, which was really cool.
So I think if you were to compare the first book to kind of being like a fantasy heist story in a way, I guess, this one, how would I... fantasy political intrigue or something? I'm not really sure. Certainly not Game of Thrones level, but definitely you have this kind of political drama going around in the background, tied in with the standard fantasy action and stuff. But I don't know if I could call this one a heist book. But I definitely loved it. It was intense, and how many times I was like, that didn't work. And then your characters were in a boat where their plans failed legitimately. Like, it didn't work. They got kind of ousted, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And so that was kind of interesting. And then also, like you said, all the little breadcrumbs we were getting are finally, you know, in book one there was these breadcrumbs, but I don't think we really knew what we were getting into in book one. Book two, we still kind of don't know. But now at the end we kind of are like, oh shit. Yeah. We kind of are getting that there was something much bigger going on, manipulating everything from the background, and that's fun.
Be the other guy, I guess. I didn't like this book as much as the first book.
Okay.
I liked it.
And the main reason, like, all the intrigue, the ending saved this book for me. But all the intrigue was good, all the stuff, but the main thing that ruined this book for me was Vin and Elend just teenage drama. I guess I'm just old now.
I'm just so old now.
She's like, he can't understand me. I've seen the stars. And how can he understand me? I push on these. I fly through the night. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, how is that? It makes you special, but not like ununderstandable.
Yeah. You ain't shit, Ben.
And on forever. And I was like, wow. And then the whole thing, like, I'm just a tool, I'm being used. Like, no, you're fighting a fight on the same side.
Yeah.
You're the muscle, and he's like the thing, more or less. And you're not being used if you want to reach the same goal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it really distracted from the story for me. But I still really like the book. It's just that part.
I think Ben is going to be that old guy that screams at kids to get off his lawn.
Get off my lawn, you little whippersnappers.
Even though I went on lawns when I was your age, you should get off mine.
You know, I was on my parents' lawn. I was on my neighbor's.
I have to say that I agree with you to an extent, but it didn't bother me just because, like, it doesn't surprise me that kids are kids. Even if they are forced to, like, grow up and deal with adult situations, they're still kids.
Yeah,
and she's like 16, isn't she?
Well, like
something like that.
17, 18.
Now 17, 18.
Yeah.
I realized that, and I also realized he's 17, 18, so it's natural. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
You know, it's not as interesting to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless I
get
had time believing, like, you feel that way after all you've been through, and then you're like, how can anyone understand me? Well, I guess that's what all kids feel like. I'm special and no one understand what I've been through and what I've seen.
Exactly.
You definitely get the sense that our heroes are... So it's kind of interesting, right? They're not only immature, understandably, because, like, even, what was it? Even the terrorist woman, terrorist man, what was her name again? I just said it. I just told you a second ago, and I'm having a... Tyndall. That's
Tyndall.
it.
Yeah,
So anyway,
close.
Tyndall. Sorry, guys. Even Tyndall said, "Oh my God, like teenage girls."
Yeah.
And then there was that whole statement about, "Oh dear, there's no such thing as a teenage girl that's that's stable."
crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the age that they're in, right?
Yeah.
So she's going through that, but yet she's had such a messed up background.
Yeah.
Like her, and Elend, in his own way, even though he was a noble, pampered, his father hated him, wanted him to die. Their society was jacked.
Yeah.
He was raised an outcast in his own family. They didn't have good family dynamics, let's say.
Yeah.
And so you can understand that not only do they not they're not really able to connect fully together, but they also struggle to try to communicate to one another in their own ways at first.
I will also say this. I think part of it definitely has to do with the fact that they're both young, even though obviously
I think he's 2 years older than her. I think
is a little bit older. He's like 20, right?
Yeah.
I think it was 18 and 16 in book 1 or something
Now
like
they're
that.
a bit older.
Now
Yeah.
it's like 20 and 18.
Even though I think a lot of it all has to do with that, and it's harder to deal with things like this, I personally feel like I know adults that also deal with these insecurities when just the changes that happen as you live. It's like, the person that I met, are they still gonna, as they change and grow, fit?
Yeah.
You know, are they gonna
Love
fit in my
you.
life? Are
Yeah.
they still gonna love me? Are we still gonna like the same things? Are we still gonna view things in the same way? And especially when you meet that young, it's like when you're 16 and 20, every year is like a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
In the amount that you grow. So I can understand some of that, like, kind of insecurity and stuff like that. And I think also she's just like afraid of losing like the first thing that she's
Yeah.
ever really cared about.
She's definitely
That's
got
scary
abandonment
in general
issues.
when you're that age. Yeah.
Remember, abandonment is a big deal to
Yeah.
her. So even Kelsier, who died, got murdered by the Lord Ruler.
Yeah.
She was even like, "Why'd you
Angry at
abandon
him,
me?"
yeah.
It's like there's clear abandonment issues.
Yeah.
I agree with the Hitman, and I think so that sums up that we think, just before I move on, that it's a good book.
Yeah.
Some better than first.
Yeah.
Some even. For me, it was probably even with the first. It felt like the right continuation of the story. Some a little bit worse, but altogether good. So if you're just checking that, you're in for a good shape.
Like I liked the way the story went. I got into.
Yeah.
The ending was amazing.
Yeah.
It's just that one thing brought up too much. It brought it up.
And I agree in the sense that I was frustrated by it as a reader, but that gave me kind of kept me on my toes a little bit at certain other scenes because I was like, how is this going to work out?
But it also seemed like they just would never talk about it. Like they just like secrets and like I can't tell you how I feel.
Again, I feel like this when I just watch real life. It's like, why aren't you guys talking about this?
Communication, the bane of relationships.
There is a small part of me that wonders if this was like realistic writing by Brandon Sanderson or if this was less seasoned writing by Brandon Sanderson.
Yes.
I wonder if he would look back at that and be like, oh, I wish I wasn't so heavy-handed with this, or if he wrote it specifically heavy-handed because they're teenagers and inexperienced.
It's possible, and it's also probably a young adult book. Maybe. I'm not sure where this falls in.
Well, this is interesting. So I did want to bring this up, and this is a good opportunity because of what you brought up. I don't know if you remember when we were reading Stormlight, I was kind of explaining to you that Mistborn was awesome. I love the concepts, but I had read Stormlight Book 1 before I read Mistborn Books 1 through 3.
Yeah.
And right when I read Mistborn Books 1 through 3, I'm like, this is amazing. On any other level, this is freaking amazing. But I can tell
compared to Stormlight,
he wasn't as seasoned yet.
Yeah.
And I've even said I like the second trilogy more. Not the story. Like the story's all together in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like in terms of like pacing, dialogue, character, I just think he's more seasoned later, and I think he kind of worked that stuff out a little bit. Yeah,
because Stormlight, they're somewhat similar age groups, aren't they? They're all pretty young, aren't they? 18, well, somewhere in there.
Well, there's a Shallan's like 17.
Yeah, so somewhere around the same age
like
groups.
20 something.
And I feel like it all just feels more
like real,
more real,
or maybe not even real. Like, but you're right, less heavy-handed.
Less heavy-handed, it's
more subtle. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's what we're...
but it could also just be the characters.
Yes,
Those characters are maybe a little bit more complex and subtle.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind, and obviously everyone's going to have their own opinions on this, but we do know that this being one of the other major worlds in the Cosmere, but even the Cherry was mentioning earlier, he's like, is this book even part of the Cosmere? I haven't connected anything yet.
Yeah.
Now, this is an early book in the Cosmere, so the connections, I think, are specifically and by design less obvious.
Yeah. But we met Wit.
What? We did meet Wit? Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Last book, we met Wit.
Hoyd. He was one of the informants or something like that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Or at least somebody with the same name. It seemed very Wit-like.
It was.
No, it was. It was Hoyd.
That Kelsier met. But this book, I felt was... I didn't pick up on anything.
Oh! Dude, we messed up. We didn't know. I didn't. Did you guys identify Hoyd in this book?
No.
I think he's here. I didn't even think about it. I was just kind of going through it, and now I'm like, holy crap, who is it? Who did we meet him?
Maybe he's They didn't reference him by name if it is someone.
So it doesn't always though. Like in Warbreaker, he wasn't Hoyd. He had another name, but we knew it was him based on.
Maybe it's just because of the voice, but I feel like Breeze is a little Wit-like.
Well, we know he's not.
I know it's not him. But
I
feel like
Breeze until like the end was very hard reading about Breeze, but we could talk about.
We'll get to that end.
That's not even the end.
But anyway, folks, actually, if you know something that we don't, we always enjoy. I mean, a lot of you guys are better than us. I mean, we're full-time readers and fans, but only part-time researchers.
But only tell us in the comments if
we shouldn't know yet.
If we should know already.
Oh yeah,
if we don't find this information out until one of the later books, then don't say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then go find that episode for that book and tell us once we get there.
Yeah, we don't want spoilers because we're not all up on the up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah, I'm reading this for the first time, so.
So it does start where Elend is still very much so. I don't want to say not confident, but he's kind of not confident.
He's not king-like
He's
yet.
himself still.
He's
the
still
character we meet in the first book.
Scala and
Yeah.
all
Tentative
Yeah.
is probably
Yeah.
the better word. It's not that he's not confident, because he is, confident in his ideas. He's very tentative in delivering a lot of this
a lot
stuff.
of ums and asking questions instead of commanding.
Right.
And yeah, this is definitely the book where you start to see some growth. I feel like really if there's anyone in the entire book that like grows, it's Elend. Vin has inner challenges and maybe sees a growth spurt at the very end, but I don't feel that she gets a lot of
Elend grows the
character
most, I agree.
changes.
Well, actually, you could argue that Sazed
Sazed
quite a bit,
has
too.
forced growth in it, but I think out of like everyone, and I almost feel like it felt like Elend was one of the kind of way more of a main character in this book than you get in the previous book. So you get all this time devoted to him and his you get to learn how he's developing, how he's kind of like, you're king now. Stop saying, stop asking, stop relying on everyone else. You need to make this decision. Some of it is, I maybe don't always agree with everything, but then a lot of the stuff like actually ends up being very favored in his how he kind of like interactions later. He does learn from him, and he gets a lot of really good experience out of kind of starting to take some of this dwindle.
I think the very least, even if because I agree with you, I don't necessarily agree that some of the lessons that he was given are necessarily have to be king-like, but because their culture recognizes them as king-like, I think it's very important for him to at least mimic that role as a transition thing, because he's already bringing new ideas to the table. If you also don't act king-like, why are they going to believe you? So it's like you kind of have to like phase in your new idea of what a king is.
And look how long it took to get to. He got this conglomeration of people together, essentially the council, the voting council, and he used all his theory. But here's the one problem with the application of theory only. Is you're not accounting for the situations of just human individuality and how quickly people lose sight of the big picture. It's that simple. Every single one of those counselors may have started with, some of them
people
are just
intentions,
ambitious,
but like,
But I mean, part of something totally new, and it just doesn't take long to lose sight of that and get hyper-focused on some of the smaller pictures, and then armies arriving outside of your door doesn't help. That's for sure.
When things are like kind of going so well-ish, I mean, they're not going well obviously in the sense that like they obviously have like slavery and stuff like that before the king ruler was defeated and stuff like that. But I mean, like when you're not like, obviously we're starting to get hints of things can be much worse. There is an ancient evil that literally like had some type of threat on all of mankind in this world, and when that threat kind of goes away, you kind of quickly stop realizing how important some of these bigger things are and start focusing on these little issues. You know what I mean? It's all like...
Yeah, I agree with that, because that's a big picture.
Right.
But even if you didn't, because we didn't even know about that big picture for a while, even if you think about the big picture of the fact that they just overthrew the Lord Ruler and they're setting up this whole new government. And even then you get petty people who are starting to focus on the self and the individual and forgetting about that. So you go like several layers there of people just forgetting about the bigger picture.
It's almost like humans or living creatures, conscious living creatures. It's almost as if we require at all times a looming large threat in order to feel a part of each other. You need a threat bigger than the two of you in order to just be like, all right, well, let's put argument on the side for a second, because this guy's pointing a bazooka at us. You know what I mean? It's like we constantly need a bazooka pointed at us.
I think one of the cool things about this whole political thing is you start to get into some of the mindset of even some of these people they're appointed and they're supposed to be the voice of the people. Yeah. But you get this feeling almost like later where there are Skaa out there that are like, oh, our God abandoned us, and they're like, our God, the one that enslaved us and was like doing all this wrong. They're like, it's worse now. Like people are dying or we're starving and in the streets, whereas before like we were enslaved but we ate, and now it's like wait, we freed you. It's like, yeah, but we're dying now, so it was better before.
I love this. There's a few people who do this really well. One of them is Robert Jordan, and we can talk about that in those books. The other one is Brandon Sanderson. He flipped it on its head. Normally, the epic adventure is about the overthrow.
Yeah.
But everybody forgets that after the overthrow is literally the worst time ever. Chaos, starvation, everything's broken down. Society's broken down. Economy's broken down. Everybody's screwed, and you have to set that back up. It's not easy to do that, and Jordan writes about it a little bit when he's talking about the Shan Chan and various like aspects of that. George R. R. Martin writes a lot about it because of the fact that during war times, it's just like peasants don't give a crap. They're just like, holy cow,
Yeah,
watch out, my farm and my family is screwed.
Sorry, go ahead.
And Sanderson writes about it because most of our story, though it started with the overthrow, that was only the true start.
Yeah.
Now we're in this portion of the book, it really is, how do we keep this thing going?
Well, and that's part of what I said too, is like the fighting dies down, and it's like now it's like, yeah, that the fighting was the fun part to watch, but this intrigue afterwards, it's like building a nation. That's the hard stuff.
Well, the king ruler before was the guy with the bazooka.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he was gone,
Yeah.
everybody's like, okay, let's start fighting again.
Yeah.
You know, because I want to be with the bazooka now.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you also got to see, and in my opinion, maybe some mistakes that were made on the king ruler's point of view. So, for instance, he had no backup plan. Maybe he was that cocky because he was essentially immortal. But technically, bad shit could still happen to him. Technically. Even though he has the power to stay mostly immortal. So the thing is here, nobody really knew anything about the religion. He knew about it. It was etched in steel. The Steel Inquisitors had it. And he was aware of it. He was using tools that clearly, if something were to happen to him, could be manipulated. Nobody but him really knew what was going on. Zero people. Not even the priests
Well,
or the
we
religion.
got to think though is maybe the Steel Inquisitors do know something, but we don't know anything about them and
What they're doing this book.
what they're doing. You don't really find anything
But
out. So they
don't-
could be doing bad stuff, but they could also be doing good stuff.
But don't you get the
know.
sense that Marsh
You get the sense
is
that
clearly
it's bad.
being, like,
yes,
manipulated?
Controlled. Yeah, or somehow
I don't know
he's-
why I need to kill you or whatever.
Yeah, somehow this is part of what we don't know is it somehow maybe the Lord Ruler did have a backup plan in them and they're trying to do something, or is it something completely nefarious and evil on the other end?
Dude,
we don't quite know.
Little detail in the end, which we're definitely got to bring up, was it was crazy when they go down there and they're like, this is the Well of Ascension, kind of, and they're down there and they're like, oh my god, there's so many cans of food down here.
He was stockpiling,
Yeah.
which, well, I'm sure is going to come up that it'll save the city.
Well, who the hell, who was
That's
the
true.
backup guy who had any idea that anything
yes.
was down there?
It was like no one else.
Like,
would
nobody
probably
knows.
be even able to open that door. Besides,
If it
Ben.
wasn't for Ben,
Yeah.
Well, because of some of the other metals that have been hidden, which
Do
we
you
found out
think,
about.
out of curiosity, because now we know about Duralamin, or Duralamin?
Delirium? I thought of that.
I think it's Duralamin.
You probably.
But
Delirium.
It's a beer.
Delirium
That's all right.
Tremens, which I'm not drinking right now. But do you guys think that the Lord Ruler just had badass stockpiles of that particular metal? Or was he always that strong, like genetically? I'm thinking that he just literally had, because
Just tons of it?
and maybe that was another thing that you could phyrochemy. And you know how when you
Yeah.
burn your own phyrochemical stuff, it's like 10 times the power. So like the question is, was that
Well,
I think
his
it's a
source of
possibility,
power or not?
But
no.
it might be different. But for Vin, it uses it in a flash. So you got like 2 seconds. Well, the Lord Ruler, he'd come down and you could feel this wave of suppression. And it'd last for hours. So maybe the phyrochemy could enhance it for longevity.
Yeah.
But it seems like he was that strong.
I think we don't. I think it's going to have something to do with the Atium. I think he found some way of because we keep talking about this stockpile. And I'm sure I knew this at one point, but I don't remember anymore at all. But I think what's happening is the Atium, there isn't the stockpile. Everyone's talking about where's the stockpile. We can't find the stockpile.
He was like using
and
it
they
or something?
didn't even talk about it when they went down there because I was like, oh, we're gonna find the Atium stockpile. You know what? It's not. They didn't say anything, so I bet you he was burning it constantly or using it in just huge mass quantities to store or somehow put power into his bracers. So I think that's the key to his powers. He burned them because they're supposed to be the like there should be
still
tons of
probably
it.
be some then though. There should still be a stockpile then. Like what are the odds that,
like a
that
little-
he got taken out like right when he used up the last bit?
Well, no, but he got taken out. I don't know how long after.
maybe that's why he
because
got
they
taken out.
thing is-
no Kelsier killed all the broke all the things.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Mines.
I can't remember what the different distance is between that and when he dies. I think it's relatively close, but
Yeah.
it could be that he like required so much that he needed all that. And he only gave
it might
out.
not have been any stockpiles ever because every week
He used it.
demanded from the ventures. We need like why don't I have my shipment?
Oh yeah.
And if
that's
you
why
don't
he
have
was
it, he
so
killed the last guy. That was...
And so like as soon as he got it, he burned it. He
Ah.
would do whatever he wanted or needed. To
Yeah,
do.
and I'm wondering too if because one thing that Sage says is something that like it he to the age thing. He said you have to stay like he said it wasn't always efficient because if you wanted to go from 60 to a young age, you'd have to go like an older age for a longer time to like the older you get, the longer you have, the more old you have to get for a long time to stay to move back to that really young age.
Pure fear
So-
chemi, it's pointless. It's just a disguise.
Yes, so that's
you
why I
have
think
to like balance out in the end.
the other thing too is I think the older he got, the more power he needed of whatever he was doing, the more he needed to get to stay that same young age because he's technically older and older. So to be that young for that long, he needs to be storing a ton of age.
They
The
did
more-
explain though when he burns
his
own stores, it like releases 10 times. So
The
like
power, yeah.
he could or more. So he could store and then increase the value of that
By burning
by
his
burning
stores.
it. But that still means he's got to be doing it almost constantly, potentially, if it is 18.
But he was going in and he was sitting in that that little shed in the room for 2 hours a day or something.
Yeah, every 3 days he'd go in there for a few hours.
Yeah, so whatever it was. So I think that I think he was that's just my theories. I think the Atium is how he was like going to be the key to his power, and he was using all of it up.
I
essentially.
We'll have to
always
find
thought
out,
he was using the Atium to somehow fight the deepness.
Because
In my mind, that is the only reason we keep using it. And at the end, when he died, he's like, "You don't know what I'm doing for you." And then there was no Atium ever.
yeah.
At least, they might find it.
That's
but
a good theory too, because you don't know. He says he's like, you don't know what I do for you, and we haven't really found
what he was doing.
what he was doing.
Well, let me ask you this: is there any reference to the thumping in book one?
Yes,
only from the hero.
The hero's journal. He has the same
But-
feeling as.
But Vin doesn't hear it yet.
Yeah, she
Wait.
doesn't hear it.
in the beginning, she doesn't.
Only in this book, I think.
In
Yeah.
this book, she does.
In this book,
yeah.
so that could be.
So him suppressing it could have somehow been related to the thumping, and maybe she started
Yeah.
hearing it not because she's getting stronger, but because it is actually able to start building up and like
Yeah,
I don't know,
he's not
calling
doing whatever
someone.
he's
Yeah.
doing.
Well, we have
There's
to
a lot
remember
of
too,
things.
though, is he took the power and he took it into himself.
Yeah.
So he has to have some power in him, and when he died, maybe that went back to the well, and that's why it started thumping slowly as it slowly
Oh,
built
that's
up.
true.
Or maybe he's
he-
able to soothe it, and that thing was just sitting.
I
there,
know, like in a lull.
I don't need to kill
Actually,
shit.
that's an interesting thing because he always had that oppressive, like numb or going. So like people would just feel nothing
Yeah.
and like depressed. If
Maybe
it
he
was
was
like
oppressing.
Maybe he was
the-
suppressing the actual
suppressing
feel.
the
Yeah.
actual well,
Yeah.
or
Or the
whatever
well,
was
too.
in there.
That was their version of social media.
Yes, exactly. So, either way, it's something that we're obviously going to probably find out. And I don't. The best thing is that I don't actually remember. So, I guess I'll find out again next book. But
Jeff's gonna make Brett bets that he
Notice
knew
I
the
never
answer to, but just didn't remember
I
again.
don't remember, yeah. My subconscious led me to this. Anyway, so we do get a lot of new characters this book, which is kind of pleasant. But at the same time, some of our old, what do you call it, I guess? We'll check our camera real quick. Okay. We're going to have to check our old... wait, where's I going with this?
New characters.
Oh, new characters. But
Yeah.
our old characters, some of them kind of like really... I
Died.
want to say, yeah, they did, yeah, some of them really did die. But also, some of them just personality-wise became a zero focal point, and I was wondering if some of that was by design or just Sanderson realizing he replaced a one role with another. So, like, the example that I'll use is Dachshund.
Yeah.
Now, Dachshund, they kind of say he just wasn't the same after Kelsier's death. He still struggles with the fact that they let Elend be king.
They let the nobles stay
And
nobles.
but I don't know if you remember in book 1, he was snappy, quick, witty, constantly throwing things in, a lot of personality. This book, none. And it did make sense in the story, to be honest. But what I was kind of wondering is, was that by design, or did he just kind of realize as he's writing it that it's just, he's not feeling the need for that interaction anymore?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. His Kelsier's death really affected him,
Yeah.
I think, and then on that, he never let go of his hatred for nobles, it seems like.
Yeah.
He tolerated Elend, and also we learn later that he wanted to be the leader.
He was a bit jealous that
And
he wasn't the one who
yeah,
kind of became...
because
not
He
maybe
probably just
jealous,
lost some purpose.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Because
well,
he
this is it now.
made all the plans happen. Kelsier was like the inspiration. Then he
He was a genius of
was
logistics
able to
and
do it,
planning.
like,
Planning.
put it together. And then he was doing the same thing for Elend, pretty much. That seemed like his role.
But
And
probably begrudgingly.
To be honest, it would be hard to go from
he
working
just-
to Kelsier to working to Elend. And
Yeah.
well,
Well, I mean,
like, well,
I think
I
it's
don't know, geez, maybe we can do that. Yeah. In the beginning, and then he's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's, we went through a phase, and now he's just reserved, and he's just like, I'll do this because it is helping the Skaa, but it's not like loving it when he was with Kelsier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and I think that it probably is a bit of a, like, you seem, like you said, there's a few characters, and there's maybe almost like two groups. There's like a group that he seemed that they kind of almost stuck in that past, like, we're still fighting against the nobles, instead of the others seemed to be much more
Adaptable.
willing to jump in and kind of say, like, okay, we're gonna work with them, we're gonna make everyone's lives better. And not that he ever showed any like things that he didn't care to make things better, but he was very reserved and like almost like he's the representation of that past that's kind of gone now, especially with like Kelsier.
I think also there's a kind of like practical reason for it. Like I think that the reasons you guys came up with are really good, but I think also it was potentially by design, just because I think he needed some people for us to suspect were the
Chondra.
what's it
the
called?
Chondra.
Yeah, the Chondra. And
excuse
he
me.
definitely was
Took it on
suspected
here.
at one point because it wasn't Vin.
Vin.
Wasn't Vin like, oh, am I like looking too much into it? Are they changing, or are they
He
just
was for a long time
Yeah.
looking for the Chondra.
And I think for us also that kind of keeps it
At least
like
He's
us
also
suspecting.
Yeah, he's
you know?
also one of the only ones that Vin couldn't check or tap
'Cause he's not an Elementer.
Elementer.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was one of
I
the
think
things.
she could have, but she didn't want to. Because
How?
a Chondra would not be affected by emotional elements.
Oh.
So she could have just been like, kind of been annoying, and then
Yeah.
manipulating emotions a lot.
However,
Like,
we
but
found
even
out that was a
heavy
legit
hand.
lie too. Because we find
kinda-
out that emotional elemancy is actually a
What
humongous
will,
impact.
but it doesn't really affect their emotions.
Yeah.
It lets them control
if you're
them.
strong
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, only if you're strong enough.
So like, she could have just put a really heavy hand on him, and he could have been like, "Stop doing that, Ben! Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
But she didn't want to betray
But
that.
didn't
trust.
she also say that would like she'd be able to rule him out, or she'd be able, if it worked, she'd be able to rule him out, but if it didn't work, she wouldn't be able to completely know it was that.
Yeah,
But
he
some
might have
people
just
can
hit
just
it.
like hide it or resist it naturally.
But that was one thing that was almost a little frustrating to me, is how she had to like surprise, like it happened with Ham, where, and then also she had to like sneak in on Breeze, like she had to like startle them or sneak in and like catch them using it, instead of just being like, they all knew that there was a second Kandra, right? Because it was the lieutenant who was there. And
I'm not sure how many people knew.
yeah, but even if not, she could have just been like, "Hey, can you burn for me?" Like, all right.
She could
like it felt a little bit like they were trying to put too much suspense around that, when it's like literally she could have gone to half the group and like, "Okay, just show me. Okay." And if any of them's like, "I refuse," be like, "Okay." Like, and
it's you.
Yeah, but I felt like there was a lot of like a little bit of an unneeded suspense around that middle
But
portion.
I also
I think
thought
she was confused. Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, what trust meant and like friendship meant. Like,
like
she couldn't confront them
because it
like,
betrayed their trust.
Yeah, but it wouldn't. I think like, all right, there's a legitimate threat. We need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you guys should trust me to test you right now with this.
Yeah.
But I also think, and obviously we find out why, she was kind of young and purposely misled that way.
Yeah.
Because we know, I think we know, there's not a smart Kandra in the world that would take the place of an Allomancer.
Yeah. Exactly.
So-
because like legitimately, like you're gonna get put in a situation where you're expected to use your powers,
And we find out why later. Vin was kind of guided that direction. But the reality is that nobody in the immediate group would have been picked. It would be way too risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be just way too risky. It'd be like
The only one would be Dox or the lieutenant, the captain of the guards. Like,
the captain of the
guard was a
guards
good
is
thought.
a good thought because that one is far enough away that not enough people know him really well. But I don't think it would be any of the core group. Even Doxson, it would be too risky. There's a lot of responsibility there, no matter how good of an actor they are. Like, you got the sense that Orsier, I think his name was.
Yeah. Osur?
As he was, well, it's
Osir.
Orsier. Was, he was emulating the Noble in book one. And you got the sense that he'd been doing that for a very, very long time. And not only that, they were extremely thorough about getting all that backstory and stuff like that, but they were able to do that like out of this scene where there's people who know about Kandra and like, so I don't know, I would see it, I could see that they would want to pick somebody specifically that's just kind of closer. And we find out that they actually picked somebody totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and it seems odd that the Kandra must have been forced to kill the other Kandra, which you would think would be the Kandra themselves are like, we're a very close-knit group. Granted, we don't know how much of all this is true.
Contract
they
is
are, but
and-
the contract is everything.
But the contract
He
being
has a
everything,
contract.
how would they put in a contract that you're allowed to kill another Kandra? Like,
Yeah.
but the Kandra's not. This is why I think this to me smelled weird.
Maybe we don't know enough yet.
True,
Yeah.
or it could just be maybe a lapse in like really not thought process. But to me, it seems really weird that they have a contract that's specifically like they're not allowed to talk about stuff, so they can't get controlled by Allomancer. They're hiding things from humans, and they're just trying to also blend in so they don't get killed off. But then to put in allow the contract to let them kill other Kandras seems to me like weird.
Unless, if they break the rules, they're up for assassination.
Yeah. The thing
So
is,
what if there was directive that Orsier was potentially
breaking the
rules, and therefore the okay was essentially out on them?
but also
It seems
It
far-fetched.
does.
But
the contract was made hundreds of years ago when there was powerful
Allomancers.
Allomancers that could kill them, and so they submitted, and it's like, we'll do anything in the contract, and then it's like,
Maybe.
we won't talk about ourselves, but like
maybe killing each
them
other
was
is fair
Yeah,
game.
it just
Okay,
seems
yeah.
that's just such an
Conflicting
odd
contracts.
Yeah, an odd thing, and it's very but it also there's like some kind of like cool things that get added into that. Like when he's talking to Vin, and she's like, "Oh, so this Chandra that's out there, could it be someone that you know?" And he's like, "We're a very close community. It's probably someone I knew very well." And this is coming from the one who killed the one that. Yeah, so he's probably like.
So he's like,
showing like,
yeah, I knew him.
I knew him. I know exactly. Which is probably a bit sad for that guy to be like, I was forced to kill literally someone I knew very well.
Very well.
But that part of it, even though I don't quite get the contract wording if that's allowed, but that part of it really lends to why he starts to slowly not trust Vin, but like Vin treating him differently starts to slowly kind of work on him.
Yeah, that's such good timing. When Vin decided, like, man, they brought me into the group, they treated me, even when I was like fighting them, but they still treated me like an equal. And here's Osura, who's been with us, and I just been treating him like shit.
I think there was a part of me that kind of wondered if that relationship would have evolved how it did if he was never replaced, though, because there's almost like an incentive in the beginning as a catalyst for the new conjurer to get Vin to like him, whereas the other one there wasn't. It was just the contract. So it's like his not need, but his willingness to deceive her. He's got to get her to kind of like him a little bit,
him up a little
and then that opened her up, which maybe opened him up, and it was like almost like I deceive you to like me. Well, now I'm kind of actually liking you, though.
You know what? I wonder about that because we also got to meet Tang Soon. Is it Tang Soon or Tang Sun? Whatever it was, but he was in book 1, working obviously for. The Venture family.
The Ventures.
And I actually felt like, in a way, a little sad. Because, like, in my mind, all of the development was Osir,
I think.
But I loved him in book 1 when he was masquerading as the noble. I thought he was hilarious.
Yeah.
Wait. He wasn't masked. We didn't know. We just knew that he existed, but we never knew who he was masquerading around as.
No, in book 1, Tang Soon was just in a body, a random body. And he was working for Lord Venture.
Yeah, but we never really were introduced to him. We just heard that he had that. Lord
Venture he actually had a scene where he was like, "Yes, sir," and then Elend comes in and he's like, "Ugh, Chandra."
I don't remember that.
It was a very small scene. Yeah. Then we knew about it, and then that's why in book 2 we knew Venture had that, and then Elend reiterates that. But I felt kind of sad because I actually liked that character in book 1, and in book 2, I thought that you're getting connected to him, and that it's working, and then I find out it's Tang Soon, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
But also, I mean, good.
But all of my I was a little depressed at that revelation as well. But it all kind of faded away a little bit when he gave her the hint.
Yep.
Because I was like, okay. He really felt bad about having to do this.
He did.
And it wasn't just him manipulating her. It was real, but he knew, that he had to follow the contract. So it's that made me feel a little bit better about it. But I did want it to be the other Conjurer at first. But now I think, it's good.
I mean, it's a great story.
It's still cool. Yeah.
Well, and plus, 90% of all of our interactions is actually the deceiving
Tang Soon,
yeah. So because it's really the only it's book 1 essentially. Almost this entire book 2 is nearly all
almost right away.
Yeah,
before the dog body.
Yeah, because it's as soon as he gets shot with the coins, and that's literally almost the beginning. Is that when the Watcher saves her? Because that was when
that means that his last moments was of Vin being a giant asshole to him. Can you get back to the house?
Yeah.
Good. See you there.
And then he gets
oh my god! He probably limped all the way back to the fucking house, and then in his little shitty body that was all broken down, got dead, and he couldn't take a body to protect himself there because Vin was a giant, kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks.
That sucks. But the Condor is super interesting because they're super long lived, apparently. And he's I don't remember before the Ascension, but I got the impression he remember 500-600 years ago.
Yeah, they were made right at the beginning, which we think also at the same time as the Colossus.
Yeah,
Colossus and the Inquisitors.
I mean,
essentially are 3 things made by.
If they were created and lived that long, are they even capable of procreation? And you would think that that would be all more reason for it to be
That
in
we
the
don't know
contract
yet.
that they can't
So
kill each other if
he
there's a set number of them.
Yeah, he indicated that they were very long lived, but
Yeah.
he didn't indicate that they were from that time, and he did say they're not from before.
Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe they do. You know, we don't know.
Well,
a
we
lot.
saw a young one. Remember the
did we?
mist race.
Mist race. They say are like young.
They're very young. Chondras essentially. So but it's weird because those things are just like they're
Mindless
considered
blobs.
Yeah, mindless blobs. But they
Scavengers.
eventually, after a long enough time, will become
But
sentient.
Maybe
I
they
think
eat
maybe
enough
they need to
brain
eat
cells.
something.
I mean,
Maybe.
Like
it
specifically,
reminds
some
me
kind
a
of
little
metal.
bit of Spren.
And they transform.
A bit.
maybe.
It reminds me a little bit of Spren, kind
Yeah.
of.
Huh. That's
little
a good
bit.
point. That's a good
Like a slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll eat
But
your
ju-
body.
Yeah. Maybe not so much in that
Well,
sense.
your face then.
So we also
Sill's
get-
just like, I'm gonna eat you, Kaladin.
Oh, so by the way, before we
like,
move
okay.
before we move on to other characters,
Yes.
so Vin, before we lose the true Orseer, the reason he gets injured is because Vin is in a battle with not just a Mistborn, and several standard Elementers, which was a pretty cool fight scene.
Yeah.
She ends up beating him because of the Atium. And,
Oh, and
but that
also
was
because
the
of
last bit of her
her
ATM.
last bit, but also because of the Watcher, who we find
Yeah.
out to be Zane.
Zane, that's his name.
Yep. Because he like slowly or not ever so slightly just like helps her out by not letting her get too close to the actual mistling in the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he also kills one too with a coin.
He did kill one, yeah.
Okay.
He killed one.
What a little psycho.
And that leads us to the little cycle Rin, who happens to be Elend's half brother. Surprise!
And also, definitely, I'm sure we'll find out later, but definitely not, because we find out when he dies that he wasn't insane and that something was like speaking to him. So like you think he's insane for majority of the book, but like there's something nefarious there.
Yeah.
Well,
was wrong?
I would say we're like 99% sure he's not insane.
Yeah.
That could have also just been his insane part
Insanity.
reassuring him he's not insane before
There
he
was-
dies. But I think you're right. I definitely think there's something going down.
There was one part that was interesting that I think, like, there's a scene where he feels a lump in his chest, which is
spike.
a spike. And it's like, why do he's not a Steel Inquisitor, but for some reason he has a fucking spike in him. And
You're
that
right.
is-
They never touched on that.
No, they
again.
didn't.
Which, because like when I first remember being like, "Holy crap!" That means that Zane's dad, the Venture, I forget his first name, but he must have somehow been like secretly also maybe getting intel on how the what's this called the Inquisitors were being created. So it almost feels like that was his like attempt at creating one, but also it didn't feel like maybe he was necessarily in on it because he apparently Zane got sent to the pits of Hastin, and that's maybe where he broke.
Well, I think that's what Venture does. He sends all of his kids there.
And until they break.
Until they either die or break. And he
Yeah.
doesn't care. And
Yeah, all the bastard kids.
Yeah, the
because
bastard.
apparently he has like 100, which granted-
actually Vin killed all of them.
Yeah.
Not all of
Elend's
no, a
third
third
of them.
brothers.
Said a third.
Oh, okay.
Third, yeah.
That was
all
a third of
Elend's
all of
half brothers.
my work.
But Ellen didn't know that the guy's brains who were all over him
So
was
do you
his
think?
half brother.
Do you guys think that it's possible that? Well, actually,
Step-brother.
no, because they kind of
Half-brother.
They kind of hint
Not
at the
same
fact
dad.
that
Same dad. Step brothers are the same dad. Half brothers are the same mom.
No, stepbrothers are related by marriage only. So like, if you're,
I guess you're right.
but
Yeah, yeah.
half
Okay.
siblings.
what are we talking about?
That
You're right. Half siblings.
The
Sorry.
Elementers that Vin killed in front of Elend
Uh-huh.
were
Well, his
all
half-brothers.
Half
Yeah,
brothers.
they were
like
all-
related to
Oh,
Ellen.
gotcha.
They were
That's
all
when
related to
Ellen
Ellen.
got- when she smashed her head
Yeah.
and destroyed that other guy's head. That was insane. But
Yeah.
the blood was one of his brothers.
That's what we were just talking about.
Sorry. Sorry.
So she gave his half brother head also.
No. Funny. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. I know it's good. It was good. Joe.
I hope my mother doesn't watch this episode.
That's okay. It was a good joke. All right. So somebody was saying something though before I got all.
Oh, I was gonna say something, but then I think I figured out a reason why it wouldn't be true, because I think I remember him even saying like there were moments in the first book where the Lord Ruler was talking about how possibly not trusting the Inquisitors or something like that. But for a second, I was wondering if maybe he was able to control him through those spikes, like the darkness seems to be able to do right now.
That's actually a good question, because it turns out that Vin, using those spikes, can control now Kandra and Kolas.
And Kolas.
Wait, using the spikes?
Well, they're talking about the cousins, like the same thing that they...
But using the enhancement meta and
whatever it is.
She can
Do we think that the spikes are maybe made of that
because
material?
remember they even said like we keep just from the corpses of the Kolas, there's all these spikes. So they have all these spikes from the corpses of the Kolas.
And somehow, what's his name? Ham? No.
Ham.
Who's the one, the Inquisitor that...
Marsh?
Marsh.
And somehow Marsh was being manipulated.
Yeah.
Either whether it's being controlled or maybe just by duty because he's part of something secretively. I have no idea.
Yeah.
He could have been turned somehow when he was going through the ritual, or I have no idea.
And he said for the past 2 years he's just been killing people. And like we don't know why.
Well, he even says he's like, I don't know why, but you must die. That's what he says to Sazed. He's like, I don't know why, but you must die. And I think like he probably in the very beginning, like he fought it, and maybe not necessarily fought it, but it just wasn't fully had a full grasp of him. And then as he gets longer, they say like, oh, he just disappears for longer and longer. We don't know what he's doing, but it could be that he's just like slowly more succumbing to this, like these urges or needs.
But they very well may have the voice in their head also that what's his name had, where he's just saying kill him.
But Marshall could have brought Sazed to that temple to take the rubbing purposely, like just like I'm going upstairs, you can go downstairs if you want. Knowing he would go downstairs, and once he rubbed it, it would be changed.
He actually said, we need to go. We don't have time for that.
Yeah, for you to memorize it. So he's like, you can rub it because I know that.
We know that maybe wouldn't even have worked anyway because Sazed couldn't memorize it. He would have taken a metal mind of it, and we know that
metal
can change
be changed
things in the metal mind. Yeah,
he didn't have Marsh wouldn't let him read it, so he couldn't
internalize it.
Even
like
even
in
then,
his own memory.
And then if you put it in his metal mind, it could be changed. And then he just like, no, we gotta go. And then he really was adamant about not reading it.
Yeah.
And then he took the rubbing, and which could be changed. And which led to the Well of Ascension. You had to give up the power and the whole bastardization of the religion.
That's so weird because it's like it seems like the opposite of just like every single story ever made.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, are you going to be corrupted by the power and take it, or are you going to give it to the people? But it's like this time it's the opposite.
Yes.
You want to be the asshole.
Yeah.
Because that's being the good guy.
Yeah. Take the power.
Yeah.
Take it.
Take it.
Yeah, but
he even tried to get her to take it.
But you got to think too that I don't necessarily think that the taking it is the good thing. No, taking it's definitely seems to be the good thing.
Seems to be the good thing.
Yeah.
But
that can of rooms already was opened when the Lord Ruler went there and claimed it.
You would think that the Lord Ruler wouldn't have. See what we don't know, and what I'm very eager to hear is there probably wasn't. You would think that the Lord Ruler would have created the world afterwards. He took the power in, and he was able to do like whatever he want, recreate the world essentially. He had all this power, but he still seemed to recreate a pretty shitty world. Like there's no green, so he would have known plants and life and stuff. So it seems weird that he would have created one that has these ash falls and ash mount. So I'm wondering is it because he was forced to do that because of somehow keeping the deepness away, something like that, or is it because he did maybe originally create a perfect world, but it immediately got corrupted, or there's something else there that we don't know.
I think it probably might potentially have something to do with just the idea that because when Vin was like looking at the possibilities or whatever, it basically said like you have like a moment to create everything, and then it gets like torn from you or something again.
He tried, and
it's like he just tried and failed. I feel like like he created this system, and then literally he was just using his power to try and keep that system in place because everything's like fighting against it, or it wasn't perfect, or something like that.
He had a system, but in the first book, we realized there was like 3 or 4 different types of governments he created, and they failed to just make a new one with him as king or emperor. Yeah. And then finally, this last one was the one that was working the best.
Lasted the longest because he was a tyrant, essentially. He's like, well, but also it's not necessarily like he tried to do things well, because you get the feeling too that like when Elendi's the
actual quote unquote hero.
Yeah. No, who's the guy?
Rashek's
the nephew. Who's the guy?
Worldbringer Terrace guy?
Yeah, the Worldbringer Terrace guy. Even like, I think when we're talking about him, he's the one who says that Rashek hates the Lord Ruler because he came from this like way off place, but he's not even of a Terraceman. And I think that guy Elendi was Skaa. And essentially what becomes Skaa. Like, his entire race then got enslaved because he's just like, oh, so you guys thought you were the Lord Ruler?
Like, then he goes off and he breeds his own people out of existence. So it's just tough.
It does seem really strange that if he had good intentions in mind, that slavery would come around. Like, how does that... Well, because it seemed like he was actively fighting to keep it.
He was like, you people.
It's not like it happened.
Never learn.
It's not like he set up a system and then it just happened because people are corrupt. He seemed to be pushing for it.
No, he did. I think he was not that good.
He hated the Skaa over there.
Elendi's people, essentially.
And he wanted them to be slaves. Yeah. Like, that's what he wanted.
He was just a lesser evil.
But then he was fighting to keep the deepness in check, too.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Like, he was doing that good, but he was also...
Do you think I don't know if there's any basis for this, because I'm not exactly sure where the metal came from, but they were required to keep sending a metal.
The Atium.
The Atium. Yeah. Was that harvested by the slaves?
It is at the pits of Hathsin.
Yeah. So maybe that's why the slaves are necessary.
Well, they sent criminals. They even sent nobles that turned into criminals there.
Anyone who can be a Mistling goes there. Well, not everyone, but just enough to keep it running.
Enough to keep it running.
Because maybe he just felt like, I'm going to need a lot of this crap to keep fighting this off. That we need people to forcefully keep...
Yeah, I still think it's a hatred towards Elendi.
I think it started with that, and then it just became part of the system, and then he just seemed to be so old and so out of touch with anybody anyway. He's like, the nobles kill each other every so often.
It just seems like if you have... to me, it seems like if you have a hatred for a race, rather than enslave them, why not create a world that they don't need to be enslaved and then just eliminate them?
That's a...
you know what I mean?
I guess we so definitely have...
unlogical. Like, they just want to keep seeing them punished.
Yeah, and I guess so.
Anyway, we don't know exactly, but we could tell that he might not have been like the devil, but he was... not a great guy.
He was not a great guy.
Yeah.
But he was also doing...
He could use a little therapy.
He was doing what he was supposed to.
Well, he was doing exactly what his uncle
said to do.
Told him to do, which... Because granted, his uncle was like, this is our only chance. You need to keep him from doing it.
Well, actually, what might have happened is his uncle said, kill him. Don't let him get in there. But then he's like, well, you're not going in there. I'm going in there.
That is true.
And then he was just kind of a dick enough to keep it anyway and use it for himself. So, you know.
Well, and I like the thing that Ben brought up in our my pre-question about how he probably picked him because he knew he would take the power.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes in, it's like he'll keep
rather than give it up and be a good guy, let's pick somebody that's gonna take the power because it'll be better than the darkness or whatever they call it.
Well, one thing that we should talk about is the bead that Elend gets. So is that somehow, here are the things, did the Lord Ruler... Because the Lord Ruler was an Allomancer, and he was also a Terraceman. Did he go and did he... It doesn't seem that he got the Allomancer powers from going in the well, because Elend got the power from a bead. Elend didn't go into the well.
But the beads were next to the well.
That is true. Maybe the well creates the beads.
He made the beads to imitate his Philocami, I think. And then, because he needed like a powerful allies,
and then he gave it to all the
close people,
the people we were close to.
And it even says, back in the day, they were so powerful. So Elend is like a full-blooded Allomancer compared to nowadays.
Like the old days,
it's been diluted with Skaa blood, apparently.
Yeah. Well, and apparently you think, like, you get the feeling that Vin is... Well, here's the thing. You get the feeling that Vin is, like, probably almost as powerful, because the Khandra says, like, you're like them. You're like the old ones. So she must be, like, insanely strong. So now we don't know, is Elend going to be that same level of strength as her?
Or even more.
Or more, or, like...
No dilution.
Yeah, because he got this bead, so that must be essentially that where all the elements of today came from.
Yeah, because there was a ton of pots, and they're all like broken. A lot of them are broken. Like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, it's empty. I need more, and then there was just one bead left.
Well, I got bad news for you, Ben. If Elend ends up becoming stronger, I have a feeling there's going to be even more teenage angsty bullshit in the next episode. Does he still need me? He's strong now.
Yeah.
No, you think at the end of this book, Vin made a pretty good, like, being like, I'm done with this shit. I'm gonna love Elend.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm just kidding.
We got...
No, but that's also that.
So we also met a few other guys. We've got the two annoying, backstabbing bastard lords, Seth and Prick. What's his name?
Prick.
Yeah, starts with a P.
Yeah,
who's so honorable,
Penrose
or whatever. But anyway,
it sounds like I think that's
Lord Penrose. But Lord, yeah, that's Seth. Lord Seth, I think that's him. But those two lords end up by the end becoming kings under the Empire, and which I guess that's a good thing considering that they weren't the most dicks, but they're still a total backstabbing. And Penrod,
Fersen Penrod.
And so he becomes a king, and then
Fersen's kind of a cool name.
Seth's daughter, who kind of likes Breezy, and she ended up being quite a little different than what she was portrayed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. I forgot. Did Breezy survive?
Yes, but he's like apparent. It seems like he is. Yeah, I feel really bad for him. Yeah. He was like destroyed mentally because he like clubs died right in front of him. He ran to the building and was like, I can't do anything, and was just like...
But even behind the scenes, they said he was subconsciously still doing his allomancy on the soldiers.
Man, Breeze is really surprising in this book. Because one, he's a noble.
Yeah.
And he decided to give that up and become a Skaa thief.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, that totally surprised me. And it was just like, not even... They just mentioned it. And then they didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. When they mentioned it, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, oh, this could mean this and this and this. And they're like, all this stuff's going to happen. And they didn't.
So I'm really interested in like what happened, what led to that.
There's
what was
a few
his family
things in this book they just mentioned casually, like the spike in what's his name's chest or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just like,
let's
just mention this and then leave you guys to be
like,
what? That seems like a big deal. Is this not a big deal?
Yeah, because I kept going through the ramifications of this. Like, oh, that means like he's gonna all of a sudden step up as like a head of the house, meaning he's gonna somehow get like onto the council. Is like stuff that I was like thinking, and then they didn't do anything.
Maybe I missed the significance of this, which is very possible. But I also feel like there at one point they were like, oh yeah, there's inquisitors like all over the town, and then they didn't do anything with that, did they?
Inquisitors? Or the ministry people?
Yeah, whatever the dudes with the
spikes.
fucking...
That's the Inquisitors.
Yeah. I think
at some point he was saying like, yeah, people have been spotting them all. Remember the guy gets brought to him, he's like, I saw him, sir, or whatever.
Yeah, that was in the outside Lutherdell, I think. And they're like, yeah, we've seen them like
everywhere,
wandering around. So they're all coming, flocking, and
but then they didn't do anything with that. In this book, right?
Well, we find out that they were being drawn to the well, probably doing some undercover shit.
But it was just Marsh was the only one we actually ever get in.
You only see Marsh, yeah.
So it feels like they could have been like, we saw one, and then they're like, oh, that could be Marsh. But no, it sounded like they were saying there were lots of
sightings
everywhere.
They might have had more than Marsh. They might have had them all over there, but they didn't need it because the only person who was coming to stop them at the very end was Sazed, and so Marsh just stepped down and did it. But who knows? At every entrance, they could have had one of them just to make sure that Vin gets down there.
Yeah.
So, but Breeze, big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The girl, she ended up being pretty cool. Playing the game,
Playing
and
dumb and
yeah.
naive.
I know.
And she's just like smart and limited people playing games with them.
I love the moment when he was like, and I believe him when he says the Atium isn't there. He's like, yeah, I've been all over that place. It's nowhere to be found.
It's just funny, and so we get these characters, and boy, I'm so glad she ended up not going through with it, but I felt pretty bad when she like broke down and Rin convinced her to go on that killing spree in Seth's manor.
Oh yeah,
she just killed like 300 men in like a few minutes, and and then like at the end, she's like, he's hiding his misbornness with his crippled legs.
Oh, jeez.
Dude, there was one point where she was just like,
oh, no.
she's like, Elend deserves somebody that when she gets frustrated doesn't go on a killing rampage. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe he does.
Oh man, she really got weak there, and I understand it like comes from a lot of places, and Rin was working really hard to manipulate her that way.
But it was also a bit of a nice reprieve from the very
what's his
drama-esque.
Rin's the brother, right?
Yeah.
What was his name again? The other Mistborn?
Zane.
That's
Zane.
it. Sorry, I called her brother Rin. I meant Zane.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, what was that?
But I was going to say it was also that scene and then obviously the war, but there were very good reprieves from extreme... This book wasn't... Not that it was boring, but there was a lot of drama and very like political dialogue in a lot of it, where those were the two scenes in the book that I also felt kind of... Not saved it, but felt like, thank goodness that we get some crazy awesome action.
Oh,
It really brought in that like, oh yeah, there's still, these guys have amazing powers instead of all this political intrigue and like the most action we literally got up to that point was, besides the beginning when she fought the misting group, was just like her and Zane's like game of tag in the streets. It's just like it was not boring, but it was a very dry of action. I think those few points that they put in were good.
I'm a little opposite. Like I like all of the other stuff, and then when it comes to the fight scenes, I'm like, all right, I'll go through this.
So I think this is a good spot because when we come back, we could talk about any remaining characters, the battle, obviously, the manipulation of Vin, and the ending.
Okay,
and then
cool.
I'm out, so I'm definitely ready for a refill, and it's good timing.
Sounds good.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Episode 1 of Mistborn Book 2, the Well of Ascension.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Lit Literature. If you liked us, please check out our social media at Lit Literature 1 at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't hesitate to join in on the conversation. We appreciate the conversation, the questions, book recommendations, anything of that sort. Join in right on the social media websites. And don't forget to check us out at our website, litliterature.com, and our upcoming projects, though there aren't many now besides Lit Literature, you can find at lyket.net, Lyket. We do have a Patreon account, but if you truly want to support us, please like and share. Cheers.